Ohio State's path to success in 2025 doesn't hinge on beating Michigan.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Hump Day edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, that's your sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And during today's show, we will dive into what the Buckeyes have to do to have a successful season. We'll also discuss how Michigan ties into that conversation, and if this year is a natty or bust season for the Buckeyes. And here with us for the entirety of this show, it's been a long, long time since my guy Jeff Hunt and I have done a show together. It's been literally since after the national championship at Ohio State won over Notre Dame. That was the last time Jeff and I had done a show together. Jeff Hunt of Jeff D Sports is back. He is my guy. And Jeff, before we get to your thoughts about this very topic, I am very open about Ohio State needing to do a couple things to be successful this season. And it's not even regarding Michigan. I'm not going to get there yet. But for the Buckeyes to have a successful season this year in 2025, they have to win the Big Ten Conference and have to win at least one playoff game.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I see your point there. Until you brought it up before the show, I'm a champion, a national championship kind of guy, playoff kind of guy. Everybody knows that. Everybody's listening to me on the show. And then you brought it up, what a weird drought it's been for not winning the Big Ten, not beating the team up north, and also having the greatest national championship to date. It's been a unique set of circumstances for the Buckeyes. We talked about it a little bit before the show, how things could have went terribly wrong last year. And this offseason is totally different. This upcoming season is totally different, but it didn't. We can't. We're not going to go back in the time machine and dwell on that. But I do see your point, and I'm in the air there. I think number one, the Buckeyes have to make the playoffs, because here's the thing. This is the standard we've set now. This is a kind of a professional format. You can't win the championship if you don't make the playoffs. Right. And what really reiterated that today, as I said that to myself, try to think of the teams that won bowl games outside of the playoffs. You really don't remember them. Like at the time, you might be like, that's cool. I don't know who Ole Miss beat in a bowl game. I don't know. I have zero clue, what Penn State did in the bowl game. And I mean that seriously. I just, never mind. They made the playoffs, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm like, number one, got to make the playoffs under every circumstance. Ohio State has to be a playoff team every year for the rest of their existence. Two, I think you really, to be successful and us to have a smile on our face, I think you need to beat two of the big three that you're going to play this year. You have to beat some combination of Texas, Penn State, Michigan. I really think you have those. If you do, and these are going to go hand in hand, you're probably going to make the playoffs if you beat two of those three. And then another one that goes, I don't think you can take a step back at quarterback. This is the first year in a while. Since Stroud's first year, I know it hasn't been a while, but since Stroud's sophomore year, to where we're like a guy stepping in. We didn't bring a guy in from the outside. We're trusting what we had in-house, but also he has the weight of the world on his shoulders because the Buckeyes don't have rebuilding years. So like the quarterback play has to be good, especially if Ryan Day, like his legacy is pinned on, quarterback success. And then, I think another thing is the defense can't take a step back either. We kind of put our, chin out there. We let, Knowles go and said, so long and all this. So like the defense can't take a step back. So, I mean, basically it's those things. I hadn't really thought about the Big Ten championship. I guess I'm kind of letting them off the hook because they won the Natty, and that's so important to me. And I know that if we go to the Big Ten championship last year, like Oregon did, it probably hurts you. So part of me is I don't know if I want that game, but I see your point as to where it's been a while. So it's so weird. Again, I'll say it again. Ryan Day got off the hook by winning a national championship and nothing else in his tenure. So it's unique, but that's where I stand as an insane Buckeye fan. And that's kind of the pulse of the area that I live in, so to speak.
The defense part and the quarterback conversation are two things that I considered those, but I wanted to keep more big picture, team oriented as far as postseason getting a trophy, bringing that conference title back to Columbus for the first time since 2020. And then also, I say at least one playoff game. I probably should have said two, because if Ohio State wins the first playoff game, let's say they don't get a bye and they have to play the first game once again. And then, well, I would say, well, you win that game. Well, to me, you have to win that New Year's Day game, New Year's Eve game. That's the game I'm talking about. So I should have win two playoff games, assuming that, well, if they play in the first round, win that one and win New Year's Day. If you don't play the first round, win New Year's Day. So basically get to the Final Four, which is probably where I should have just landed at the beginning, because I think this team is good enough and should be good enough to be a Final Four team once again. But the quarterback thing is interesting because you're not going to have a quarterback like Will Howard this year. The stature, 6'5", 240. He can run like a deer, but he didn't use his legs very much last year. It was very much a man that used his brain very, very well, that knew how to throw the ball all around the yard, but also knew how to figure out the right ways to run the offense. Yeah. But it was frustrating that Ohio State a year ago didn't decide to go up-tempo until the playoff, because you and I were really having issues with, why is the offense moving so slow when Ryan Day's offenses always flourish when they run faster and they move at a quicker pace. And so this year, I think the pace being quicker is going to help the quarterbacks. It's going to help them not be forced to think. Because if you're a young quarterback and you are thinking over and over and over about the last play and 2 plays ago and 5 plays ago, you're going to throw an interception, you're going to not get 3 yards on 4th and 2. You're going to make boneheaded decisions because you're moving too slow. Well, if you pick that pace up, it's going to help a young quarterback. And whoever starts, those are big shoes to fill. Will Howard is not the best thrower of the football, but he was the ideal quarterback for Ohio State's team last year. So I do understand where you're coming from with not taking a step back at quarterback. And part of me believes you're not going to, but that's just off of like speculation. We truly have no idea what these guys are going to do because they haven't started a game yet.
Yeah, that's exactly the truth. And the weight of the world is on their shoulders. I 100% believe that this is a team, like as Ryan Day said at Big Ten Media, this is an attacking, the national championship team. Yes. I'm going to give him all the credit in the world for he stood behind his comments. It sounded like a bunch of fluff last year, but then once we saw what kind of team he created for the playoffs, we cannot overlook how good that team was for 4 games and how dominant they were and how ready they were. So I guess, that's why I lean more towards a playoff run. What you say, you're correct. Okay, let's put it this is a perfect example. What Oregon did last year to me was not a success. And that's where 100%. I'm kind of with the Buckeyes being if you get there and then get blown out in your first playoff game, you're correct. I wouldn't be satisfied with that. A part of me is realistic in saying if you win a national championship this year, your quarterback looks great, for the upcoming year. So, sort of like Stroud in the Rose Bowl situation, to where we were all disappointed, but we were like, next year is the year, and it almost was. That's where I can kind of land on these Buckeyes of being truly realistic and saying, I don't think as of right now, because I don't think their national championship, even though Vegas has them up there, I don't see them as man, they ought to be in the, I don't think I have them quite in the Final Four yet, but only because tough schedule, really good teams on it. New quarterback, the whole, everything that we've talked about. But you're right. But what you can't do is lose to 2 of the big 3 that you play, or worst case scenario, all 3 not make the playoffs. A bowl game will feel like that Missouri game 2 years ago. It will feel like an absolute tragedy. And that's why my number one is you at least have to make the playoffs so we get a chance, to something crazy to happen, to grow up. Anything under that, I mean, and that's where I probably differ with a lot of Buckeye Nation. If you let's say you beat Michigan, but you go to a standard bowl game, that's not successful to me. Correct. In this day and 100%. Age. So that's where I probably differ. And I'm not telling anybody they're wrong for just wanting to, get that monkey off the back and all those things. I totally get it. And at that point, I'm not saying it won't be fun, but I would not consider that a successful season at this point.
One thing Jeff and I didn't do when discussing what Ohio State has to do to have a successful season is say they have to beat Michigan. We'll dive into the Wolverines and the Buckeyes and that fierce rivalry next. This episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. This grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. Thank you all for tapping and Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. A little look into the future before we dive into the Michigan Wolverines. Jeff and I will be a part of some post-game shows live after Ohio State games in the upcoming season. It could be the Texas game. It could be the Penn State game or Wisconsin or Washington. We haven't got that far yet. But Jeff Hunt and my guy, Mo Murphy, we will do a lot of shows throughout the season in the middle of the week, but also some live reaction shows live on the YouTube for your enjoyment. Literally reacting to the game that we just watched. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Buckeyes on YouTube and hit that notification bell so you know every time a new show goes live. And Jeff, I can't wait for Thanksgiving weekend because there's one team that I can't stand in college football. I can't stand a lot of them. But it's something about the Michigan Wolverines. And Sharon Moore went to Big Ten Media Days, got behind the podium. He had a fresh cut. His haircut was on point. But him representing Michigan did something weird to me, man. And he may be a great gentleman. He may be like a person that I'd be cool with. I've never met the man. But I know when you are the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, there's something that doesn't sit well with me. What also doesn't sit well with me is this 4-game losing streak. And neither one of us put Ohio State beating Michigan in our definition while defining what it means for Ohio State to have a successful season. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Why did you leave the Wolverines out of that mix?
I'll tell you exactly why. Exactly what happened to them last year. And I have this argument up and down, with everybody I run into for the last year, and they can have a lot of fun by being like, "Foreigner." Let me tell you, this is the only question I would ask. Would you rather be Michigan last year, have a 5-loss season and beat your arch rival and play a bowl game? Or would you rather be Ohio State, win a national championship and lose to Michigan? Everybody takes national championship. And that's, I've said this for years, Jay. I've said it on your show. It's not that I don't value the rivalry. I've lived through it. But here's what I can tell you. I'm 50 years old this summer, Jay. Turned 50 years old last month.
You don't look like you're 50 years old,
I've
man.
seen Ohio State beat Michigan a lot of times. Not as many. And my 50 years, they're probably 20 and 30. I'm being totally honest. But I've watched them beat Michigan a lot of times, and it's awesome. It doesn't even compare, though, to winning a national championship. It doesn't compare to the 3 national championships that I've watched. And that's just the truth of it. I'm not saying that it's not fun, but it's become, I keep telling everybody, it's become more like North Carolina Duke basketball. On that night, it's a big deal. We all watch, we all talk about the rivalry, but that's really not the most important thing to either one of their seasons anymore, like it was in the bowl era. That time is just gone. Auburn, Alabama is the same thing. Like, it's just as important, on that day and to talk about. But what's really important is the next step. Or so this year, honestly, like Texas is a bigger deal. Penn State's a bigger deal as of right now. And Michigan's going to be a good team. But we can't get caught up in being – people used to say crazy stuff like we can lose every game except for Michigan. That's false. We learned last year it was me, Jay. Look how much fun we had for 4 games after that loss. There's no way that anything could have been better than that. And I mean that. And I know not everybody agrees. And I promise that I understand that. They really, it needs to happen as far as that's a good team that you have to beat and you can't take extra losses. But as far as me, defining my entire season around whether we win or lose that game. That's not what it's about. If we're out of the playoff race when we play that game, am I going to want to win it? Of course. I'm never going to, but but it's not going to fulfill me, not making the playoffs and winning that game. Like that's just the truth of it. That's my point of view. Do you need to win it? I think it's more important to win as beating a good team and trying to make the playoffs than it does win the rivalry right now. It's just times have changed. We got a bigger playoff, and our rival is whoever is the best teams that year. Like our rival this year is Texas, Alabama, all those teams ranked up there. And at the end of the season, it might be Michigan, but it is not the end all be all of my life anymore, because I'm telling you, it feels great to win the next 4.
There's a reason why Jeff and I are fans that think alike, because I look back to last year when it came to putting Michigan in the list of things Ohio State has to do to have a successful season. 2024 was a great eye opener for me, because most of my time as a fan, it was, you got to beat Michigan, which I'm not saying you don't have to beat them. Like, that game is still
right.
Very, 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 very important, and coaches will be fired. If you lose to Michigan, make the playoff and win the national championship, I don't think he'll be fired. But if you end up losing to Michigan and missing the playoff, or losing to Michigan and getting bounced in the first round of the playoff, you're going to lose your job. Not just because of the loss to Michigan, but because of the playoff and your result when you get to that part of the season. And it's weird that we are here now, but we have to have the conversation that, as important as the game is, Jeff, you said it so well, the national championship just hits different, man. We have waited 10 years, 10 long years for what we experienced in January of this year. And I don't want to take away that feeling ever again. Give me 25, 2026, 2027, and beyond. Give it every single year. Ohio State wins a national championship. My wife may say, Jay, you have too many hats. I'm like, well, most of them are Ohio State, which isn't true, but for this conversation, let's just say they are. Most of them are Ohio State hats, and one of them to my left right now is a hat that I got after winning the national championship, after the Buckeyes did it last year. They don't give out shirts and hats for beating Michigan. No. They don't just bring out memorabilia for us to buy. No. It is the national championship. We're not saying Michigan isn't important, nor are we saying that Ryan Day should just lay down and lose 5 games in a row. We're not saying that at all. What we are saying is, I am not going to put that Michigan game in a list of things to define what a successful season is, because last year we saw Ohio State had 2 regular season losses. They were both in conference. One was to Michigan, and they won the national championship. Literally had the greatest run we've ever seen in the postseason in this sport. I would take that every single year. And I was a person that always believed a 2-loss team should never win a national championship. I fought hard for LSU when they had 2 losses and won the Natty. I didn't like it. It didn't sit well with me. This is a new era of the sport. This is a new flavor of college football, and you have to adjust to the times. It's very similar to me, Jeff, with the New York Giants and Eli Manning when they had a poor regular season record. Went on that run, beat the Patriots, and won the Super Bowl. You don't look at the regular season and say, well, y'all had a bad year because y'all record was poor. No, what do you say? They were Super Bowl champions. You don't look at and see did the Giants beat the Eagles? Did the Giants win their division? No, what do you say? They won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now, I am going to say, like, the Buckeyes had to win the Big Ten title, because that's, to me, something that has to happen. You don't want to go 5 years if you're Ryan Day and not win that conference when you literally have the best talent in the conference every single year. There may be 1 year you may want to say Michigan might have better talent. Maybe. But for the most part, Ohio State has better talent. It's weird that we're here right now, Jeff, but I think this is the reality, that beating Michigan does not define a successful season.
No, and I thought about it a lot, like all those years, for almost 2 decades, the run that we had against Michigan. But I remember all the teams that thumped Michigan and yet had lost some stupid game earlier in the season and weren't contenders for the national title. And I look back and I'm like, that was not better than last year.
Right.
That was not, and yes, the other 2, we beat Michigan on the way. That's great. The year that Fields, played against Alabama in the national title and Michigan couldn't play for whatever reason. That was awesome too, because you still had a chance to win the national title. And I know everybody, I can hear people saying like, well, yeah, that's what I would say too if I lost 4 in a row. No, this is the truth. You can go back to Jeff Needs Sports as long as you want, or as long as you've known Jeff Hunt, and I will promise you that I've never backed off from this, because the moment in 2002 when Jim Tressel brought home that national title against the unbeatable Miami team, that's the day that I knew, like, this is awesome. Like, it's fun. It's fun to, win the other game. Because I'm telling you right now, like, more people remember what Ohio State did in the postseason last year. You could take a poll across the country and ask them what Michigan did after they beat Ohio State. Most people don't care or don't know. And Michigan had a great game, beat Alabama. Nobody cares that Michigan beat Alabama. That's a big victory. 10 years ago, that's a big victory. No, but they know, what Ohio State did, and they know, what Oregon didn't do. Like, that's really what matters in sports is, about that. So, yeah. Now, if you're going to tell me that we can do both, then, I'm the happiest guy in the world. If you tell me, is there a concession? Yes. If you can tell me I beat Michigan, win 2 playoff games, but not the national title, okay, I'm still very happy. So I understand there's a concession, but I am never going to be prisoner of, like, that's the only thing that matters. And congratulations to Ryan Day for not getting caught up in that and not, ruining the entire season last year and staying the course. And Will Howard and the whole gang, for not, losing it all after that game last year, recouping and proving, again, all credit. They lost the game. Michigan didn't do anything wrong this time. Not that they haven't before, but I'm telling you, that playoff run, playing 4 more games that mattered is way better than that one victory. I'll live by that.
Jeff and I are always the guys that believe the national championship is what Ohio State shoots for every single year. But I have a good feeling, based off what we have said in the first 2 segments, we don't believe natty or bust is the goal for the Buckeyes in 2025. Thank you all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes right here on the hump day and making this show your first listen of the day. Jeff, last year, Denzel Burke wasn't shying away from 2024 being a natty or bust season. He said it a couple times when he got behind the microphone, and I understand why he said it. Those guys also came back, Henderson and Ransom and Burke and Tuimoloau and Sawyer, even Will Howard transferring to Ohio State. They came there. They were on the team last year with the mindset that we're winning the national championship. And for them, for all they had done in the sport, for all they had accomplished, they hadn't won the ultimate prize, and that was their goal. For this year's team, you don't have that. You have a lot of guys that are talented, but they're really, really inexperienced. And if this team was full of 4- and 5-year guys that had been starting for 2 or 3 years, I may say this is a natty or bust season. I'm not doing that. I don't believe this is a natty or bust season, because I feel like for this team, that is unneeded pressure. That's pressure that last year's team needed to play like they did. I think this year's team can play very, very well without that added pressure, because the added pressure could cause a couple guys to crack. You don't want that to happen.
Yeah, no, I think that you're 100% right. When they said it last year, we all agreed. None of us argued. None of us thought he was overstating it. I love what you said right there. They needed that pressure. That was important to that team. The guys like Judkins and Downs, like, that's what they were there for. Jack Sawyer, like, we're literally there to win a national championship, and that was it. And that's what made it so special. Like, for people that really know, the program and had watched their career, is that when they achieved that. And there's a lot. They're not the only team that does that. And I'm not saying it's a negative for these teams like Georgia last year. You know what I mean? Disappointing season. Like, there's a lot of teams, but, like, I would compare it more to this year's team. I would compare more to, like, Notre Dame last year or Penn State last year, who were like, we know we might, but it's not a must, and then enjoy the ride. And then if you get better as the season goes on and get hot, now we know that, they wear that scarlet O. If they beat Texas and they go on a, let's say 5 or 6 game streak, then all that changes because it's Ohio State. Right. Then all of a sudden they're the favorites. I mean, right now in Vegas, they're the second favorite to win the national title again, which I think is ridiculous, but that's just the pressure that comes with it. But I don't, and this is silly, but I don't feel, and I don't think you do either, I don't feel the pressure around the program this year to do that, but I do feel the excitement of it. And I think that this is one of the rare times to where we have a good, talented team, and also not that weird, crippling pressure that can crush a team, but also like a slight bit of an underdog. Like all they got to hear all summer is Arch Manning, Arch Manning, Arch Manning, Arch Manning. Now Texas, on the other hand, is under terrible pressure to win a national championship, and it might work. It might work, what you said, but Ohio State gets the sort of and I know it's crazy to say underdog. You're the second highest, second best odds to win the national championship, but I love the position that they're in. I love the group that Day's put together. I love how less they've talked this year. I'm starting to see, sort of a pattern here with Day's teams, and maybe there's some method behind the madness. And I think last year, you touched, I didn't pick it up. Like it was natty or bust, but throughout the whole season, I'm like, I was kind of like, this team just doesn't get it, blah, blah, blah. And then when the playoffs hit, I'm like, oh, my bad. Y'all had a plan. Y'all had a plan the whole time. I apologize. You knew what was up. And this team might also. Like this, I'm sure that they're playing. Clemson is great at this position. Like, oh, we're just little Clemson. I hope somebody just gives us a shot. But meanwhile, on the practice field, they're out there just deciding how to, they're just be killers and destroy people. I think that's the plan for Ohio State. It's all going to revolve around the quarterback. But it's not a natty or bust season. That would be ridiculous to say about this team, even though they also are going to be contenders for the natty, which is awesome. That's where the program is right now. That a failure might be contending for the natty. That's where we want to be. It's where we deserve to be. That's where all that money goes. That's why the players come here. And, let's also, we might have the, two of the, probably the best offensive and best defensive player in college football on the same field. So there's a lot of upside, to a team that we'll never beat the great Texas and all that. So it's kind of a cool position. And I know that we're going to talk about this 3 weeks into the season, and I'm going to be, but that's how Ohio State fans are. We're nuts. I know I'm going to give up, at 12:30 Saturday, August 30th. But that's why we love them, and that's why we enjoy the highs, and that's why we kill ourselves on the lows and all these things. It's great. I love it.
I'm kind of getting sorry. I'm going to start feeling sorry for your wife. It come that Friday night before that Texas game.
She's already.
She's like, Jeff, why are you so nervous? Well, we got a game tomorrow. It's Texas, and
I'm already nervous. I just had the conversation, Jay, before I came downstairs. She's like, what are you guys talking about? And I said, expectations. And she went, oh my. and she goes, she's like, what time is the Texas game? And I told her at noon, and she said, well, at least we're pulling off the Band-Aid. And I'm like, I guess that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, man. She
as much as she loves him, she's definitely more level-headed than I am.
What would a second national championship do for Ryan Day?
Oh, I mean, it puts him in, Buckeye lore, Buckeye Hall of Fame. Like it starts putting him in you start having the conversation about like, now you're considering the success that's been on the field around that. Like, well, now you're passing like the Les Miles and these guys that came along. You start, you put him two national, especially this day and age. So 2 national titles now, if nothing changes, that means you have to win, 4 games in a row twice against really good teams to win a national title. So whatever coach wins the first 2 in this format is NFL quality, legendary, like status, like just like Tom Coughlin, like you said it with the New York Giants, legend. To win 2 playoff runs like he won is legendary coaching ability. And Ryan Day is put himself in position and gave himself the leeway and bought himself, like he's done everything right, everything we've learned after it. He's bought himself a chance to go from you're going to be gone after the Michigan game until legendary all time. We might build a statue, for Ohio State. So it's everything. It means everything.
One more question for you, and it's going to be about Urban Meyer and Ryan Day. Urban won 1, Day's won 2. Urban never lost to Michigan. Ryan Day's only beat him once. If Ryan Day wins a second national championship this year, goes back-to-back for the first time in Ohio State history, would you put him as a better Buckeye coach, comparing the 2 tenures in Columbus, than Urban Meyer?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And because, like we talked about, the circumstances that you have to, achieve to win a national championship now, like let's not forget that Jim Tressel went to three national championship games, but lost two of them. So we kind of forget that. But he only had to win one bowl game to win a national championship. So he was 1-2 in those, as to where Day would have to win 8 games against good teams with all the pressure on. If he goes back to back, like just it's over. I mean, you might rename the stadium. That's how we feel about it until the first time he loses 4 games, and then we're like, nah, it's time to get rid of him. It's fickle. We really like the outside perception. I know we don't have time for this. The outside perception of Ohio State fans running our coach out on the rails is not what it really is. Like, people read the blogs and people read the post. We really don't feel the way. We just lash out. Like, we really do just lash out. And I understand if you read, Buckeye fans, pages, and after a bad loss or whatever, I understand what the perception is, but we really like Ryan Day more than people think we do. We really aren't as unsettled as people think we are. We're just emotional. We wear our heart on our sleeves. We say things. It's the whole, it's like me and you, Jay. Me and you can text back and forth about, how bad this player's playing, how, what's going wrong here, all these terrible things. But that's our business, but we still love the players and love the teams. I mean, all the things that I've said about Jack Sawyer, like, it wasn't that I wanted him to fail, you know what I mean? And he proved me wrong. So it's not 100% healthy, but I promise you, and we said it on the show 6 months ago, when they win, the gratitude comes back in droves, and that's for a lifetime. Like, to this day, Maurice Clarett, 24 years later, is still one of the most beloved people in the state of Ohio, and he played 1 season at Ohio State.
I'm right there with you, Jeff, with that statement, as well as Day would be a better Buckeye coach than Urban Meyer. They're both on – Urban's going to be a Hall of Famer if he's not in already. Day is on the track to be a Hall of Famer. I think what Day has done already in only coaching 80 games and winning 70 of them – he's already gone to 2 national championships. Let's not forget that. He went to a national championship in his second year, in a COVID year, when they couldn't even practice like normal. They couldn't prepare for the season like normal. You got a game? Oh, game's canceled on Thursday. Wait, game's supposed to be Saturday. Yeah, no. The year was so odd. And he found a way to still get those boys in the national championship. I'm with you. Day would be a better Buckeye coach if in the upcoming year he goes back-to-back. And I know it's not in our goals for Ohio State to win the Natty this year. I think it's realistic. I think Jeff and I both believe it is realistic for Ohio State to be a true contender to win the Natty this year. Jeff, I'm out of time. I just saw the clock. My bad, y'all. Let everybody know where they can follow you on Twitter and check out your show.
Just at JHunt006 on Twitter, and Jeff Needs Sports is back. I'm going to get Jay on this year, get a lot of great guests on this year. So please just go check me out. Jeff Needs Sports. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of fun talk. And it's going to be an amazing season regardless, of what happens. Thanks, everyone.
Guys, thank you all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the portal, because my guy, Brian Smith, he's going to keep you up to date with everything going in the sport, as well as recruiting. That's Brian's bread and butter. It's recruiting. He's going to keep you up to date with everything going on in recruiting around the country. You can follow Locked on Buckeyes and the portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. It's been Locked on Buckeyes on your hump day. We'll see you next time.